now that so what you see here is this is this very charming story, where again Lebaki is in the film and she is the sort of main character, but um, the woman who is queer, who sort of strikes up this uh, very sensuous relationship with this apparently very straight-laced society woman who it turns out is, you know, maybe not so bound by tradition as it appears. And that is the point of the salon, is that you can be who you are, in this female space, that it is protected and it does not admit the enemy, whoever the enemy might be. And so there's this wonderful thing where, because she's queer, she's sort of dresses in this sort of mannish kind of way. She's sort of butch, and as a result, every time something physical goes on, they make her fix it. So she has to go and restart the generator because she's the tough one. So they don't want to get their nails broken or whatever it is. They're like, oh, send her. So it's a charming little scene, and yeah. But it completely captures what Enlo was talking about, where there's this enormous sense of unity and compassion inside the salon, where the salon operates very much as a whole world unto itself. Yeah, and so one of her daughters, so Enlo says on page 81, one of her daughters tried to comfort her. Houses are no longer sacred, her aunt explained. We can't sleep, we can't live. If you can't be safe in your own house, where can you be safe? The animals, the bastards. And this is really it, is that's the home space is the one place, really, that women in some cultures are essentially their freest. It may not be. They may be. It's not that they won't be abused there. They may very well be abused. But it represents the protected space. Now that's true for most people. I mean, I think most people would identify home as being, as Robert Frost says, home is the place where when you go there they have to take you in, and that's, I think that definition would work for lots of people who are like not fond of home, but at the same time, they recognize there's something central about it. For those who have joined the army, though, as Montoya has, a miscarriage and the female space that's usually set aside for recovery from birth, whether it's a live birth or a stillbirth, is denied her, right? So on 164, Montoya is told, the therapist was unsympathetic, clearly assuming, like everyone else, that Michaela was trying to get out of the war. Iraq will be good for you. It's just what you need, she said. It's like, okay, fine. So you just had a miscarriage, and you're physically trying to overcome that, and you're mentally trying to overcome that. You know what you need to do? Go to a war zone. That's great. And if you're there, ideally kill somebody and come back a hero. Like, that'll be terrific. There's just so much terrible. It would be wonderful if this was just an ironic, sarcastic sort of, but it's not. This is straight up, right? Your baby just died. Time for a war zone. That'll fix you right up. So when Montoya finally actually gets her feet on the ground, or her boots on the ground, as they say, even then her role as a soldier takes second place to that of a woman. We don't want something to happen to you, I said. Don't look at me like I'm your little sister, because I'm not. I'm a soldier, not a gender. I'm a soldier just like you, on 174. Now remember that this idea I talked about 2 lectures ago about people in green, where the young sergeant says, can you get me on, sir? Can you get me on? This is just 2 people in green. Nothing is bigger than 2 people in green. And this, of course, is common to, as I've talked about before, people of color who see the army and who this may be the best deal they're going to have, as the young sergeant, pardon me, as the young soldier says when she's dealing with the colonel who's there to close down the camp the base, pardon me, the army base is the word I'm looking for. And she says, why, this is the best deal they've got. It's their country. So this is the same kind of thing. Experience seems to show that there's a hell of a long distance between joining and acceptance. And have a look at this clip from, there was a project called Lioness, which I suspect has been now disbanded. I haven't looked at it for a couple of years. But this is a documentary about that project, and if you have a look at it, you'll see this particular clip is a discussion by a woman who is a military historian and also has written a novel about called Queen of the Desert, I think it is. It's quite good, and she identifies here this, the point where, how was it women got into combat? Well, this is how, basically. The Bush government effectively got caught between two things it wanted. It wanted to keep women out of combat and maintain sort of traditional women's roles, and because that's what the Republicans are supposedly all about. Whatever. I mean, it's just such a lot of nonsense. That's their story. That's their propaganda. Basically, that's their cover for whatever they do. Unless, of course, it's Stormy Daniels, or it's they're grabbing somebody by the pussy, in which case that's fine. Apparently, that's just okay with them. Or calling AOC a fucking bitch. It's like, oh, okay, fine, that's check. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Anyway, okay. Sorry. But sorry, I have to collect my thoughts here. What the hell was I talking about? Oh man. The Bush White House then is caught between these two things that it wants. It wants to keep women in a traditional role on one hand, but on the other, it wants more to get Iraq. It wants to own Iraq. And if it's going to do that, it has to keep the female soldiers in the field because, according to Muslim law, only a woman is allowed to touch a woman. A man who is not the husband cannot touch a woman. That's forbidden. Now, of course, that doesn't stop the rapes. I mean, just because that's the law doesn't mean people follow it. But whatever. I mean, we also have laws against rape. It doesn't seem to stop people from, I don't know. Okay, this is incredibly aggravating and frustrating. We've got laws, people don't follow them. Same thing everywhere, basically. So the Bush government then had to back off, and that's what this professor here is talking about. And she's very good, and her novel is very good. I have a look at it if you're. I think you would find it interesting.
There is a big disconnect right now between what the policy says women can do and what women are doing. Congress tried to straighten it out in May of '05.
Mr. Chairman, we direct the Secretary of Defense to tell us how he's going to comply with that 1994 policy, which excludes women from direct ground combat. That means not manning machine guns, not assaulting enemy positions at close range with rifle and bayonet, with tanks, with fighting Bradley vehicles, engaging in firefights, in short, doing all the things the Marines and Army do in the war against terror.
During the debate in Congress, word came down to the House Armed Services Committee from very high up within the administration saying, withdraw that question right now, don't go there, because if we were to obey the policy, we'd probably have to pull most of the women serving in Iraq and Afghanistan out of Iraq and Afghanistan, and our ability to wage those wars would fall apart. They do not want that question coming before Congress again, or catching the public interest while operations in Iraq are still going on.
So what Enlow records and what we see is an overall loss, and terrible ones too. On page 39, she says, by now, 2.5 years later, as the masculinization of public spaces has become extreme, Karima and her sisters remain indoors most of the day. So if a war brings about an extension of the patriarchy, in all of its spaces. What it does is it pushes women into more and more confined spaces until effectively they're prisoners of male power, one way or another. And it may be, ironically, now you've got women who are saying, I'm proclaiming my feminism by joining the army. And what are you going to do? Well, you're going to go to another country and project force, as they call it in the military. You're going to project force, and so you're going to be riding in a tank or a Bradley fighting vehicle or something like that. And your job is going to make it so dangerous for women to exist in the society that they're going to be forced inside by male relatives. So that while you're proclaiming your feminism and being empowered, you're also pushing other women of color inside. So this is not, I mean, as I have indicated before, this is why there are just war theory. This is why people work on just war theory all their lives.